Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to yet again another edition of the S Stories right here on Sophiya Anjam's official YouTube channel. Thank you so much for watching. Every Friday 7 p.m. we talk about different issues at hand, about social issues that matter. Sometimes we have guests over as well. And today's theme is very close to my heart, and it's going to be a topic of discussion that I've been wanting to talk about for a long time. So as always, starting off with a quote, and it goes something like this: that feminism isn't about making women stronger, is it? Women are already strong. It's about changing the way the world perceives that strength. So this is going to be the core subject on the show today. We are going to be talking about equality, of course, which is what feminism is all about. उसके साथ साथ हमारी सोसाइटी में अगर आप देखें तो डिस्पैरिटी है, पोलराइजेशन है. हमें लगता है कि फेमिनिज्म का मतलब ये है कि हमने मेल बैशिंग करनी है और फेमिनिस्ट सिर्फ औरतें ही हो सकती हैं. तो कुछ ऐसी चीज़ें हैं जिनको हमने बिल्कुल इरेडिकेट करना है अपनी सोसाइटी से, क्योंकि बात तो सिर्फ ये है कि मर्द हों या ख़वातीन हों, वो दोनों एक ऐसे इंपॉर्टेंट एलिमेंट्स हैं टू द सोसाइटी दैट दे हैव टू गो हैंड इन हैंड एंड साइड बाय साइड. प्लीज़ वार्मली वेलकम माय गेस्ट टुडे. नाउ इट्स सच अ प्लेजर टू हैव her over, and I'll tell you something. I admire her because of her thinking. I admire her because of her ideology. I also admire her because of her family. Assalamu alaikum and good evening. How are you, Nayab? Good to have you over.
So good to be here, and thank you for the lovely introduction.
My pleasure, my pleasure. Now let me formally and officially introduce her as well. Now she is a gender rights activist who is heading external relations at a microfinance company called Community Support Concern. So starting off with the first question first and foremost. Being a feminist, how is it going so far here in our country?
I think given what has happened in the past month, this is a very important question, because in the past month we've experienced this dual paradox of extreme highs and extreme lows.
Absolutely, true.
So there was this first half of March in which I thought, oh my God, so much progress has been made.
Yeah.
Things are so different, because I was invited to attend a lot of
different events
for women's rights and for Women's Day. And all of a sudden on the 8th of March, I was part of one event that pretty much changed the course of, I think, the way that feminism is viewed in this country.
Agreed.
And it brought forward so many questions, so many concerns, and I would say a lot of hypocrisy that a lot of people have.
Absolutely.
So I think at this point, being a feminist is difficult.
It is difficult, I'm sure. And also I think that it gets confusing also at a certain sort of part in your life that you're thinking, okay, ab kis tarah ki baat kare, agla banda kya perceive karega. Just to shed light on the recent past, that what just happened, we're talking about Women's Day and we're talking about Aurat March. अब मुझे बताइए लोगों को जो देख रहे हैं कि एग्जैक्टली औरत मार्च का मकसद क्या था, आपने उधर विटनेस क्या किया और फीडबैक कैसा मिला?
Right. So I know the core organizers of the march very, very well.
Okay.
They're all women who have remarkable achievements in the field of women's rights.
Absolutely, they do.
One of them, founded the first digital rights foundation, as you know. Others have, excellent track record. Now, the purpose of the march was very simple. This is one day where women are going to come out on the streets and claim their space.
Sure.
Because we don't see that at all. When was the last time you remember, I mean, just before the show we were discussing how difficult it is for us to get around without getting harassed, all of that.
Of course.
So the idea of a march always is that it's a collective group of people who want to claim their space and they want to talk about their own problems and their own rights.
Sure.
And this was the idea behind it. The march is not a one-off event. It brings together people who are already working on this and who will continue to work on this. That particular day is just symbolic for the fact that it's Women's Day and we're coming up.
I mean, don't we do the same for Mother's Day? Don't we do the same for Valentine's
Absolutely,
Day? Right? It's
but
not just that one day
Mother's
that
Day
you're
is
talking
not
about,
as controversial
right?
as Women's
Okay,
Day.
now you've spoken like a true victim.
Yeah,
we'll ask her details
absolutely.
later.
So basically, what happened was what I'm going to tell you what I witnessed
Observed,
there as a first-hand witness. My observation was that the atmosphere over there was very light. It was a celebratory atmosphere.
Sure.
There was singing, there was dancing. There were women from every single walk of life that you can imagine.
Right.
And there was such a large percentage of lower class and working class women. There were trade union activists, there were domestic workers. I took the domestic workers from my house as well.
Okay.
So it was diverse, it was well represented. Now what happens at some of these occasions is that if you have, let's say, 2,000-3,000 people who are convening together, of course different women will have different concerns,
of course,
right?
Yeah.
And the problem, the backlash that came because this is why I think it's so sad that unfortunately ever since the march there have been at least 7 to 8 high profile cases of violence against women in March alone.
Right.
Has there been the same amount of outcry against those incidents of violence as there was against certain placards that were there at the march?
Right.
This is the question that I have. That every single placard over there had a story behind it.
But the ones that were basically circulated on the social media were unfortunately the ones that were basically just, being repeated also continuously. And people thought that, okay, so these were the only banners or the posters or the placards that were being held by women. Hence the confusion and the disparity.
Absolutely. And I think that there's a huge responsibility on the media, both digital and electronic, that the way that things are portrayed.
Right.
I could never imagine that I would have to go on this many news channels and go and defend a day where women were just marching for their rights. I mean, it was absolutely ridiculous because 4-5 posters, or let's say 7-8-10 posters that were for some people objectionable, even though I would like to explain that all of them had a context behind them, but they just took the spotlight. And other than that, the manifesto of the Aurat March, that was widely circulated and that had concerns ranging from as basic as economic empowerment, the right to work, the right to education, domestic abuse, rape, honor killings, dowry. All of these really important issues were completely sidelined, and there were thousands of placards that were talking about these issues.
Right.
So I think we see what we want to see.
Right.
If someone is against something to begin with, which a lot of people in this country, just for them, the idea of so many women coming out on the same day on the streets across the country is problematic to begin with.
It is, of course, because that's where insecurity creeps in as well.
Exactly.
But I have a suggestion. So here's what I was thinking when all of this was happening. In fact, I talked about this on my shows also. And I was just thinking about the fact that, keeping in mind the kind of society that we live in and keeping in mind the kind of world that we are here at, it's another world entirely, right, altogether. I also feel that we really need to sit down and sort things out and make a schedule of how a certain target market would be reached out. Now, for the next Aurat March, we have to keep in mind that, okay, so even if this sensitive subject might not go well with others, it might go well with a certain section of the society. So, for example, even if you believed in what the context of the placards was, the other population did not.
Right.
So, what we can possibly do is that how we can make it sweet for them so they would be able to understand, because that's for the larger good, for the betterment of the society later on.
Absolutely.
I suppose.
This is so funny because the day of Women's Day, I wrote an article that was titled Choosing Our Battles. And it was all about how we need to make things more palatable to normal people, etc. The only problem, and I completely agree with that, and I think that post the march, there's been a huge effort from the side of the organizers and the participants to talk, clarify, talk about this is not what we meant, this is what we meant. But I also think that on some level you also have to take a stand, because I am
not
going to let someone tell me that I can't hold a placard that says people should not tell me how I should sit or stand.
Right.
Why is it so offensive for them that I'm saying that?
Right.
This is a basic everyday issue. Like if people are constantly telling girls about their everyday mannerisms, don't sit like that, don't stand like that, don't speak like that. Of course, fine, I'll try to make it easy.
But Nayab, you know what, I'll tell you something. So it kind of reminds me of the fact that, jaisa des, vaisa bhes. That's what they say, right? So I understand the concept and I understand the context also. But I feel कि लोगों को इतनी एक छोटी सी बात जो बहुत गहरी भी है at the same time को बताने का एक तरीका है जो कि I think हमें उनके लिहाज से अपनाना चाहिए, and that's the sad part.
I think we can do both simultaneously.
Yeah.
So I think that we can also be catchy and fiery
Yes.
and
I
controversial.
love the comical elements also. Some of them are quite funny and very creative as well.
And I don't know if you've seen Shehzad Gyas has
Yes,
made
of
this
course. I love him.
Fantastic video,
Yeah.
which is hilarious and addresses. So I think we can do both.
We can do both,
In
yes.
the line of work that I am, I mean, we have to completely change our demeanor when we go into the field and we
Right.
speak to all these women and all that. And that's fine. You
Right.
have to do that.
Absolutely.
But I think the other push is also necessary.
Sure.
We also have to start telling people that we're not going to not talk about sensitive issues.
Right.
We're going to talk about the hard issues as well.
Absolutely. So let's shun some myths also, because this is going to be the last tier of our questionnaire and then we'll be signing out shortly also. So a few questions that people had. आप जो है दूसरे इश्यूज के बारे में क्यों बात नहीं कर रही थी जो कि जनरली खवातीन को फेस करनी पड़ती है, तो आप उसका जवाब दें कि वो सारी चीज़ें ऑलरेडी कवर हो चुकी थी.
It was actually the highlight of the entire
Yeah.
in most of the plays. There was one play that was about के बेटियां जब पैदा होती हैं तो क्या रिएक्शन होता है.
बिल्कुल.
ठीक है. There was one thing which was about dowry.
ठीक है.
There was so much stuff about just it targeted all the fundamental issues that women face over here. I completely disagree with that. If you had been there, you would have known that the fundamental issues actually were 90% of what was being talked about.
So we would suggest that you can go online also and you can actually check out the manifesto and make sure that you know exactly कि context क्या है उस चीज़ का. Nayab, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to have you over. But before we say goodbye to everybody else, in a nutshell, why don't you tell people about the family that I've been talking about for so long, what keeps them busy, and your take-home message for everyone who's watching this right now.
The family is engaged in a lot of things that I think at the end of the day tries to do something positive for this country.
Sure.
It's a family of activists, and it's a family of particularly what is of interest to me right now is that my mom is the founder of the microfinance company where I work as well, and she has grown this company to at this point we've given enterprise loans to 300,000 women. And we operate through a branch network of 30 branches. So, we have a little bit of academics, we have politicians, we have gender rights activists. It's great fun.
This is lovely, and I'm sure that the future of our Pakistan is definitely in the right hands if you have such fantastic women taking care of us. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching the S Stories right here on Sophiya Anjam's official YouTube channel every Friday 7 p.m. As always, signing out with a quote. And since we're talking about women's rights, I have something very, very incredible to share. That the true republic, men, their rights and nothing more. Women, their rights and nothing less. Pakistan, Zindabad.
Feminism is not about hating men. Feminism is not against religion, and it does not want women to be superior to men. A feminist is someone who believes in equal rights and equal treatment under the law.
Sometimes even shouting for justice gives you some satisfaction that you're being heard, and you must be heard.